From the Bowery to 3rd Avenue and all the hip and happening joints in between, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Jason Burns.
And I'm Danny Nucci, and this is the What About podcast.
This is our first episode based around a neighborhood, which I didn't think we'd ever have.
No, it was kind of great. And I wish we had talked more about it a little bit, but they were just so cool. What an interesting trio. And the one thing I wish we could do is just, I think we can do it, but like I would love to be able to let the listener to get a little piece of the music and hear it. Or maybe this inspires them to go listen to it. I know it's very difficult to do 2 clicks and listen to a song somewhere, but yeah, man, their music is really cool. Like I said, if you love David Bowie, this is the band for you. But also they do their own thing. It's really great. I enjoyed talking to them. And I wanted to ask Michael more, difference between being an actor and musician questions, but it just didn't seem right.
No. And I think, as you're somebody who is both an actor and a musician, I was curious, is it more difficult to...
Oh, now I'm going to get the questions? Is that how this works out now?
Yeah, you're going to get the question because you're in the same boat. I'm just curious is it more difficult to get the credibility of being a musician once you're already known as an actor because people kind of just see you the way they want to see you?
I think it's more difficult being an actor and then wanting to be taken seriously as a musician than it is being a musician and wanting to be taken seriously as an actor.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. What about being a serial killer? Not that he is in real life, but he was on the series.
Well, I think when people view you in a certain way, I think it's hard to shake it, especially when you're as convincing and as dynamic as he was in Dexter.
Well, and I just did all of this to lead to the fact that the album is pretty killer.
Oh, no. But I think the music lends itself. The music lends itself to even if you're viewing Michael as Dexter, the lead singer of Princess Goes. I think it works.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's moody in that really sort of transports you to a place kind of way in a good way.
And he's got he's just a great lead vocalist. He really is. And the soundscapes are lovely. And Peter, who is the drummer who played with Morningwood and the Wallflowers, he was the original drummer. And Matt, who is played with everybody and is currently the keyboardist for Blondie. And Michael C. Hall, who is of Dexter and 6 Feet Under fame, and a excellent songwriter, lyricist, vocalist for the band Princess Goes. The first question is for our listeners. I got to find out, but can you tell a little bit of the origin of how you guys got together?
I was in the Broadway production of Hedwig and the Angry Inch for a time, rock musical, glam rock musical, playing Hedwig, and Peter was the drummer in the band. And so I got to be in a band with him for a time, and that ended. We maintained a friendship. In the interim, Peter went on tour with Matt, Katz-Bohen, and for them it was a reacquaintance because they'd known one another from way back in the day, but they reacquainted. They loved playing together in that band, and when they got back to New York, decided to get together and start making some music of their own. And I heard some of those instrumental tracks one night after dinner with Peter, and I was like, if you ever want somebody to sing on those, that might be fun, without any aspiration that we were going to be a band or anything.
Were you guys hanging out at a place, or was this after dinner? Because
it was after dinner. We went back to Peter's studio in Union Square, and he was like, check out this stuff that I've been making with Matt. And he played me 2 or 3 tracks, and I was like, yeah, this is amazing. I think I said, if you ever want somebody to sing on these, that would be fun, and that was it. It wasn't, hey, let's start a band.
What did you think, Peter? You were like, yeah, well, I know you can sing, but that it's more involved to write songs, right?
Yeah. I was blown away. Mike came by the studio one day and wrote some lyrics on the subway ride down and sang on a song on our first EP called Love American Style. And I knew Mike was just a a great friend and a great actor, and a great performer, a great singer. I already knew that, but I had no idea he was also a great lyric writer and great lyricist, melodicist. So it was just a beautiful moment for all of us. We were like, yes.
So it sort of becomes like a love at first creative sight. Is that how it was, where you guys just kind of clicked?
I call it like the first kiss of, like it was just like, there is something to that. Like the first time you do something, the first date, I don't know. This one had an energy all to its own, and I wish we understood it or knew. I mean, I don't really wish we understood it. We don't really understand it. We're just happy to be along this ride with each other.
And do you think just the fact that you and Matt have had, been in a lot of different projects and done a lot of bands, you could recognize it for what it was? I mean, just the experience. Oh no, this is something worth, rolling up our sleeves for. Because, I'm sure you've done so many projects where you're like,
Exactly.
This is great for this.
This is one of those, you work really hard your whole career, and maybe you're lucky if you get to be in a collaboration as sort of magical and undefinable as this. It's been a blessing for all three of us.
And so how much of your creative energies is going into Princess Goes Now? Like what, obviously you all have other things you're juggling. So how much of your life is this band now?
100%.
Don't dilly-dally, Matt.
I'm collecting my thoughts here. I'm trying to provide quality answers. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Yeah, when we're together, when we're on tour, when we're in the studio, we're all giving 100%. There's no question about that. Then, when we leave the studio, it's just Taylor Swift.
And Travis Kelce now.
So you basically schedule it. It's like so Michael Few would be like, okay, I'm doing this from this period to this period, like a gig, right? Same thing.
Yeah, I mean, we're all doing different things, but when we're doing this, we're just doing this. We're not a part of us isn't elsewhere. So I think we all appreciate how unique a place this takes up in our lives, and so we're continually committed to it and recommitting to it. And
that was obvious.
a lot of this has coincided with COVID, and there's been the strike, and so there's been a lot of sort of time freed up for us. But even if it's hard to make the time, I mean, not hard enough. We've continued to make time for it because it's occupies a unique place, I think, for all of us.
I watched the video of the Shimmer video, and I mean, it looks like this is all you guys do. I mean, it's what a beautiful video. Can you tell me how you guys got there? Because I mean, it's just gorgeous.
I just made that on my laptop.
No, that's not true.
No, I'm just kidding.
I literally, did you see my face? I was like, that can't be true. That can't be true.
No, we were put in touch with this guy, Tim Richardson, who's primarily known as a fashion photographer. He's an amazing artist, and is starting to venture into making more narrative things and moving image stuff. And he came to see us and was into the performance and listened to some of the tracks for the new record and responded to Shimmer in particular and said he was down to make a video for us. And the result is really us sort of entrusting him with his vision. And I think he just had some sort of intuitive sense of what the song feels like to us, and obviously just oodles of talent in terms of his. I mean, when we made the video, we thought it was going to be sort of much simpler, but he was inspired to do this thing that involved a lot more post-production stuff, and he made this incredibly dark yet beautiful and trippy thing. And he actually made the album art for the new record as well. So he's been a huge collaborator this time around.
Dark yet beautiful and trippy thing. I think that would describe both the records that I listened to. I think that would describe it accurately. I was just curious. I mean, obviously there's the you can't get away from David Bowie references when you listen to this, but it's its own thing. I mean, I heard a lot of different things when I listened to it. I mean, obviously it's its own thing, but can you guys talk a little bit about how you found sort of like, okay, this is sort of the sound we're going to, or this is sort of the vision for it? I mean, obviously it started with the music and then Michael came in later, but can you talk about how it sort of developed into this?
Matt and I started jamming in my studio in Union Square, New York, and I think our sound had as much to do with the kind of instruments I just had laying around. It's a residential building, so for one, I have an electronic drum set, a Roland V drum kit, which was pretty state of the art, really cool drum set. But I can change sounds, at the push of a button. I can put in 808 sounds or my own electronic sounds or real drum sounds and sample things and put it into the machine and then play the drums to that. So that was just because I can't make a lot of noise in there, and I get a lot of noise complaints even playing those electronic drums. So we have a lot of Matt's a multi-instrumentalist. I like to play a lot of different instruments, and we just sort of developed into, I think in the beginning we were kind of like, let's not use guitars and see what happens. That might have been an initial thought, but I don't even really think we thought about it that much. We just, Matt, I have a lot of synths, Matt has a lot of synths, and we just started building from what we had.
So with that, what you already created, Peter and Matt, having Michael then come in and add lyrics to those songs, did it change the dynamic for you of what you had created, in that he brought something that you didn't expect these songs to move in a direction of?
I think it changed the dynamic for the better, just all for the better. It was sort of mind blowing to hear Mike's vocals on these instrumental jams. They became 3-dimensional, quite literally. And Mike is a brilliant lyricist and a great singer. And I think it was just sort of surprised us and shocked us all.
Did that process change from the first album to the second in terms of how you went about doing this, or did you guys still create the music on one side of the spectrum and then Michael came in after the fact?
Now, once we kicked the door down of songwriting, we just didn't limit ourselves to any one way. Very quickly, we were all in the room writing together. Mike was bringing in melodies and lyrics, and we were rallying around those and making music. A lot of our songs would come from a live jam. Matt will come by the studio and we'll just hit record, and first thought, best thought, whatever we happen to be sitting at, we have an old piano in our studio. We just, like I said, we just find songs wherever the hell we can. And now we write in all different kinds of ways. Mike sends vocals on his iPhone that sometimes that vocal that he sang into his phone will end up on the track. And, we try to get songs out any which way we can.
What's interesting, Michael, is, at first, obviously you were you a poetry writer? Were you always a journaler? I still can't say that word, journaler. Because there's got to be a difference between writing lyrics for yourself or writing poetry or writing, thoughts, to having to be prolifically coming out with, song lyrics and melodies.
I mean, I suppose I've always written I don't know, the writing equivalent of like doodling, I write to maybe work out ideas, or I've definitely done a lot of writing preparing for acting work, just kind of as exercises. And I suppose, I don't think I ever considered myself a poet, but I definitely find that the structure or even confines of rhythm and melody can inspire words that wouldn't have otherwise come if you were just writing out longhand,
And did you discover that in this process, or did you write lyrics and melodies before this?
I mean, I would say maybe on a couple of occasions, I would write things that seemed to lend themselves to a certain rhythm or melody and seem like maybe they could be songs, but I never set out to write a song or lyrics. This really was the first time I was kind of, I think, and I credit Peter and Matt the first time I felt like invited to give that a shot, or to explore that, or to try that. And something about the environment that's created with the three of us made me feel like I had any business doing it.
So you took a little bit of a leap of faith in yourself to say, hey, guys, if you ever want anybody to put some vocals to this, give me a call?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I had some sort of intuition about it. I don't know. I mean, it probably some of it had to do with doing that Hedwig musical and getting a taste for what it was like to front a band, and then doing the David Bowie musical and working with him and feeling maybe emboldened in a way that I wouldn't have otherwise because of that.
But I mean, it must have been encouraging when both Matt and Peter, with their experience, and kind of went, "Yeah, no, this is good. We should do this."
Yeah, I mean that was probably the big thing, that we tried it like as an experiment, and they were like, "Yeah, let's this is cool. Let's keep doing this." And maybe that was all I needed to keep doing it.
And Pete, you had mentioned the drum machine, and I look at this band and I listen to the album, and I think this is very modern, very almost futuristic. But at the same time, I think that this band couldn't exist if it wasn't 2023, because you're probably doing so much separately, at least at first. And just the way that we go about being creative has changed so much, certainly since Matt and Pete, you started playing music.
Yeah, we very much a band of 2023, and like Mike said, the universe has given us a lot of time the last 5 years to explore this collaboration, and we're definitely not done seeing what's in the well.
Well, and I can hear the progression. I was listening to the first record, and the song that was kind of an outlier from the rest of it was Angela Peacock, right? And so it was like, and so it just it was like, what is this? Wait a minute. This was not what. And first of all, I also want to say that I did not expect. I came sight unseen, which is cool. It's always great. That's the way I like to see films. That's the way I like to read books. I don't like to know anything about it beforehand. So it was refreshing to sort of listen to this and sort of know that this was Michael's project as well, and expecting a singer songwriter kind of thing. That's not what I got. And then I got to this first record listening to Angela Peacock, and I thought, okay, I can see that they're figuring this out. Can you tell me how? Because the second record just sounds a little bit more, I don't know, singularly visioned, and the first record sounds a little bit more like you guys were, basically expressing everything you wanted as a trio.
Love hearing all that, and like that seems really accurate, actually. Angela Peacock, yeah, it is an outlier, but it kind of goes back to my time in the band Morningwood. I was the main songwriter in that band with Chantal, and I got that in my DNA. I think that Mike heard it and immediately came up with the lyrics about Angela, and it was just like, oh yeah, we gotta, it's fun as hell to play live. I'll tell you that. And it is.
I was gonna say, yeah, when all of a sudden somebody straps on a guitar and just goes, right? I mean, I can't imagine that you don't sample that guitar, do you?
A little bit of both. Matt plays bass on that live, and has a distortion pedal. We got a big SVT bass amp, and yeah, and we did bring an acoustic out on this last tour, and we'll probably be adding an electric really soon as well for future shows.
When you look at the record of the sort of recording history of a band, the first one's always super important. But for me, I always look at like the sophomore album as like, hey, you guys made it through this moment. You kept the train going. When you look back at this album, Come of Age, 10, 20 years into the future, what are you going to look back on it in terms of this time of your sort of creative journey and where you are at? Is it going to be just as important as that first one?
Yeah, it's just, yeah, absolutely just as important. I mean, it's literally us. It feels like we're coming of age as a band. Like you said, we're doing it again. I think we raised the bar in terms of, I think it's just everything is sort of more fully realized, as you said. We're coming at it. Our vision is more crystallized. I would say we know what the museum is, the Butterfly Museum. That's sort of something we refer to amongst ourselves as, if one of our songs fits into the Butterfly Museum, we'll put it on an album, regardless of what the genre, someone could say the genre is, if it's synth pop or more like heavy rock a la Angela Peacock. We're not, super concerned with genre like that as much as the overall vibe as being, within the museum. And so if someone listens to it, they can say, oh yeah, that sounds like That's a Princess Goes song.
So,
right
Michael,
there.
when you started writing the second record or the lyrics for the second record, was it a different process now that it wasn't let me try writing some songs and they work on this song. Now you're actually writing a specific vision with a specific record, having it done. Did that change the process for you at all? Or was it just like now you're on a clock?
No, I mean, I haven't really felt a sense of a whip cracking or a clock ticking or anything like that. You know, we're doing this because we love to do it. But I think it's just a sort of natural evolution. You know, the more you do something, the more you hopefully get comfortable doing it. But I mean, honestly, I don't think. I think any thematic kind of vision that exists on the second full length record, if it exists more sort of cohesively, that's something that happened unconsciously. I didn't say, okay, I want this second record to be about this or whatever. It's just kind of it's just what was coming.
So for you, it was more just writing the second record, going, okay, well, let's what are the songs? Let's figure this out. Let me see what this is.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we make things in our own studio and on our own timetable, so it's not like we're like, and then we're going to go in for 2 weeks and we're going to cut that record, you know. So there's and maybe we'll make a record that way at some point, but yeah, it was more.
If it ain't broke.
Yeah, true. But there's no formula, you know. There are times where a musical idea will be sent around and it's pretty much fully realized, and a melody and a lyric will reveal itself. You know, there'll be potential lyrics lying around waiting for the song to find, you know, that it syncs up with. There are times where lyrical ideas maybe are the impetus for a bigger song being built around it. But I guess the answer is, I don't know.
It's probably best, right?
You know?
Isn't that, it's kind of probably best. I don't know. I don't need to know. It just kind of works out.
Yeah.
And so far, so good, right?
Yeah.
You all have fans in different verticals, right? Like Michael in acting and Matt and Pete from the previous projects and current projects you're in. Do people come to a Princess Goes show having expectations already in place?
Yeah, sure. I think they do. And you know, our sort of motto is like, whatever gets them in the door, hey, as long as they leave singing our songs, we're happy. You know, if it's any aspect of any of our careers gets them through the door, like, beautiful, we got them. You know, now let's brainwash them with our music.
What about the East Village in New York? So I guess I want to transition into talking about the East Village and about how that has been important to the three of you collectively and individually.
Yeah, I think we all share a common denominator of having spent time. I know my first musical experiences in New York, making my own music, were on Orchard Street and, you know, downtown, and playing in some of those clubs like Pianos and Arlene's and you know, even Mercury Lounge to some extent. Just
have you ever busked, like busking outside on the streets or in the subways?
No, but
they
I
were
would.
Professionals forever, Jason. Professionals.
I mean, hell yeah, play in the subway. You know, we made a couple of videos down in the subway.
Yeah.
Michael, you didn't play in the subway. I don't buy it. They'll be like, what's Dexter doing here?
We made that video for Vicious down in the subway just not too long ago. It was like right before COVID, like really just unplugged everything. It was amazing. We were carrying around just like an iPhone, playing the track so that we would have something to sort of reference and lip sync to. And what was amazing is it was New York and just nobody even turned. Everybody was like, whatever.
This subway performance
They don't care.
Yeah, it's great.
Is the East Village like a unnamed member of the band? Like, is it part of who Princess Goes is?
Absolutely.
I will say that my sense of New York is fundamentally tied to the East Village because it's the first place I lived. My first apartment in '93 was on 5th Street and Avenue B, and And it was like
What year was this? Because Avenue B has a different connotation depending on the decade.
1993. So,
oh, okay. So not quite nice yet.
No. The waves of gentrification were probably lapping up on the shores of First Avenue by that point. Haven't made it up to Avenue A and Avenue B. No. It was dicey a little bit.
Yeah, so Tompkins Square Park was not anywhere you wanted to be at night.
Yeah, well, it was right after the raid on Tompkins Square Park happened. When all the officers put tape over their names and just went in and kicked everybody out.
Beat the shit out of everybody,
yeah. But it was still pretty realistic. I mean, now the East Village is like Busch Gardens is to Europe. It's like the East Village. It's like an East Village themed mall.
But it's still like one of those areas that's like known for its creativity, and it must help being around other creatives to then inspire your own creativity.
No, it was fantastic. I mean, I lived in a terrible apartment for it was also a time where, I mean, I paid like $473 a month for my apartment. I don't think you could pull that off in New York now.
No.
Yeah, it was an amazing time, and it's where I, came of age as I moved to New York to go to acting school, and so I was just, living in the East Village and walking into Greenwich Village to the Tisch School of the Arts to go to school, and when my summers off, I was, working a bartending job and a table bussing job, and just living that life. It was a great time, and yeah, all those venues, all those places to see live music. And I mean, I think, Matt, where did you grow up?
Well, my father got an apartment on 16th Street, off 3rd Avenue, which is pretty near. It was just basically East Village adjacent. So, one of my earliest show memories was going to CBGB and seeing, for the hardcore matinees that they would have there on Sundays, which were all ages. And so you had like some really scary skinhead dudes, and then, kids like me would go in when I was like 13, 14. And, it was great to be around there. And Mike was around there, and I probably wasn't even aware, or maybe I was.
Have you guys talked about if there any shows that you both saw at the same time? Have you figured that out?
Yeah, there's got to be some crossover.
Yeah,
that'd be amazing.
And then our studio is there too.
Our studio's in Union Square. Our first gig is at Berlin on Avenue A and 2nd Street. We played tons of shows at the Mercury Lounge on Houston. So, yeah, I mean, it's not just our past. It's still, I guess, a part of our present.
And hopefully the future, yeah.
East Village's own Princess Goes is really how you could be introduced.
You mentioned that first show. What does the sound translate to? Because there's so much going on the albums. I'm curious, what was that first show like? Were you still trying to figure out what the live show was going to be like?
And who was going to play what? And Michael, have you felt the pressure to play more instruments than you already do?
No.
He's like, no, I just sing. Fuck this. Fuck that.
No, I mean, I
feel no pressure to write. I feel no pressure to perform. I don't need an instrument.
I feel no pressure.
Nashville. Fuck y'all.
Yeah. No, I definitely will use a keyboard from time to time to just like maybe think about chord progressions that would accompany things I'm coming up with. But I'm not an instrumentalist, not a professional. I mean, these two guys are freaking professionals. So I leave that to the professionals and just try to stand and deliver there at the mic.
Going back to the East Village, one of the things, anybody who visits New York is all about is the food. And where's your favorite spots in the East Village to eat? What's the go-to with the band gets together? Where are you going?
Oh, man. There's a great vegan burger place called Plant Burger. That's right on 4th Avenue and 12th Street, is it? 4th and 12th? That's right by the studio, so that's kind of a go-to. That's fueled us.
Everybody gets one.
I'm going to say Il Buco on, fuck, Mike, what is that on? Is it on Bleecker?
Bond?
Yeah. Bond Street. It's an Italian restaurant that you gotta go to once in your life. Il Buco, just incredible.
Nooch, you're Italian, aren't you? Nooch, you grew up in Italy.
Yes, I grew up in Italy and then Queens for 4 minutes, but I'm really from here. So people ask me, "Where you're from?" I go, "Van Nuys." They're like, "No." I'm like, "Yeah, Van Nuys," because this is where I went to high school. I mean, I've spent a lot of time on the East Coast, but yeah, I'm really from here.
All right. Well, you heard it from Peter. Il Buco.
El Buco, no, and sounds great. Bond Street. There was a sushi place on Bond Street that I absolutely loved. Bond Street Sushi. Anyway, but that's for a different story. Go ahead, Michael. You're East Village Eatery.
I would say Veselka. You know, I mean, all the great pierogies and such in that part of the world, that part of the city, rather. There used to be a place called the Stage Delicatessen. It was right beside the Orpheum Theater where Stomp was forever. And it was just a little hallway. It's since shut down. Maybe it was a COVID casualty. Maybe it shut down before that, but it was just like...
I used to go there, Mike, in 95. I went there all the time.
Which brings me to the next question that I wanted for each of you to answer is when you saw the East Village change to what it is now, can you talk a little bit about what you saw, how you saw the change happening, or what your experience of the change was?
New York is always changing. I mean, I think that's what I love and also don't love about the city. I get nostalgic. I get attached, I think, a lot to things. And then New York is also just an object lesson in just not getting too attached to anything because your favorite, French bakery is going to be gone, or that little Indian restaurant that's about the size of a closet, it just meant so much to you, is now gone, and so there's a little bit of just, that is what New York is. I think it's like, don't hang on to anything and just get what you can. And
which used to be the opposite of what New York was. That was what was great about New York. It was dependable.
It's still great. And it's yeah, there's a corporatization, a Chase Bankification of New York that is, CVS is everywhere and banks everywhere. That part of it is unfortunate, and that's been happening over the years. But there's also just, I complain about New York all the time, and then I go outside and I'm just like, holy shit, I don't want to be anywhere else. I just want to be with all these fucking people,
I think the fact that it's relatively speaking prohibitively expensive means that it's, going to be less of a magnet for people to move to and just sort of like scrape by. It's not a place where you can really scrape by in the same way. So that's rough. I think there are less characters on the street and more, I don't know. I think New York, sometime around the late 90s until the early aughts, started to, at least to some degree, cater more to tourists than to the natives. And you feel like you're in a place that's kind of been modified to make people from elsewhere comfortable. And when I got to New York, it was like, you figure out how to get comfortable, because we're not trying to make you comfortable. And that was a part of what was amazing about being in New York. Like getting to the point where if a stranger came up and asked you directions, you had the wherewithal to know what to tell them. You were like, oh yeah, I'm starting to figure this out. Knowing which blocks to go down, which blocks not to go down. But all that said, it's still New York. I don't think it's been completely conquered by cell phone stores, but there are a lot more of them.
Yeah, all that stuff. Cell phone stores, vape shops, which are like the new awful thing that are popping up everywhere, and they're just horribly tacky and disgusting. But also, I live in Bushwick, where I feel like it has a lot of the same vibe that the East Village had back in the 90s. It kind of reminds me of something similar in terms of a lot of clubs and a lot of DIY spaces aren't necessarily legal and kind of feel like they're going to fall down at any moment.
And it feels like yours, right? You find it and it's like, this is my thing.
Yeah, like this is not, being written about in the New York Times yet. Maybe it will at some point, who knows? But yeah, the gentrification thing is obviously real. But then again, like Peter was saying, you sort of learn to let go. Like I was riding in a car with Debbie Harry, and we were passing by CBGB, or where CBGB was, and someone mentioned nostalgically, like, CBGB's was there. And then I think Debbie said something like, that shithole? Oh, God.
Perspective.
So we have an audience question that we like to ask, and this one is for any of you. Would Dexter Morgan be a fan of Princess Goes from John P. and my edition? If so, why? If not, why not?
My answer is no, he wouldn't, because he doesn't like music with lyrics. He has enough words running through his head as it is, and he prefers marching music.
Sure. John Philip Sousa kind of thing?
Yeah, stuff like that.
It's so funny. Every time we do a music podcast, I just want to get deep into each individual songs so listener, please forgive me. I just get so excited about, how these songs get made and what the process is, and especially for somebody like Michael, who, it wasn't what he's been doing his whole life as opposed to the other two members of the band. So, but yeah, it was great talking to him.
I agree. And I really enjoyed the fact that Michael was willing to talk about just like the idea of stepping up to the bat with these two seasoned musicians. And, a lot of us would think, oh, well, you're around Michael C. Hall, you're going to be intimidated. But obviously, when you're in their space, he was intimidated going toe to toe with these guys. And it seems like that really helped them all come together in a real cohesive way.
Yeah. And he has the goods,
Yeah.
That's because it makes sense that anybody would be skeptical, skeptical. Was there a G in that? Anybody would be skeptical.
It is the East Village episode.
Well, it's funny, East Village, and you don't get a lot of accents these days. It's very hipster, or yipster, as they call it. But it was great talking to them, and I look forward to the next one. And thanks for listening.
Music by Denny Nucci, produced and edited by the same two people you heard hosting this show because they have no friends.